Welcome to the Ducksoft Weekly Sandbox Review. This inaugural episode will cover some exciting work-in-progress components, the new asset browser, and more. This week, Gary continued work on the body controller. This is similar to an existing component, Character Controller, in that both components are responsible for moving objects around in 3D space without allowing them to clip through solid obstacles. Character Controller, which will still be around, don't worry, is pretty much just an invisible box that can move around a level, stop when it detects that something's in the way, slide along walls, and get itself unstuck when you put it inside solid geometry. It has no inherent inertia, friction, or response to gravity. Body Controller, by comparison, will allow you to move a character that acts more like a physical object. For example, it may be pushed around by other objects. Body Controller is currently used in Walker, which is the game that loads by default when you play a map in Sandbox. You may know the game as, hey, this isn't Gary's mod. Body Controller will also be used in an upcoming platformer project from Facepunch with the repo name s&box Pycrom. And now I'll present to you some unreleased gameplay footage that was leaked by a Ducksoft operative embedded within Facepunch. See how the froggy moves like Spider-Man? Worth noting, Body Controller makes use of new attributes named Feature and Feature Enabled, which allow you to create tabs in the inspector for a component that hold different properties of the component. As it currently stands, you can try out the Body Controller for yourself in the testbed repo, which will be linked in the description of this video. A new DebugOverlay property was added to GameObject and Component that will allow you to draw boxes, lines, normals, spheres, and text without the need to use gizmos. An additional benefit is that you can now specify duration in seconds for which the thing you are drawing will remain visible. Ragdolls are old and boring now, right? All they do is just fall to the ground limp. Facepunch programmer Layla is working on a ragdoll component in testbed that offers an alternative. These ragdolls will physically move to match the animations applied to their renderer. They'll still fall to the ground since there's nothing in place to keep them balanced, but they'll nevertheless move in some fascinating ways. It's fun to try using different animgraph parameters to see what will happen. Many animations produce bizarre movements that suggest the component needs some improvements. The animation that plays when the citizen is falling is particularly good with this component. I've written some code so that when the model's feet and chest all stop touching the floor, it automatically begins flailing its arms around. When it finally lands, it will often flinch or sometimes roll. With the right sensors, physics joints, animations, and IK, then it would become straightforward to use this technology to replicate many of the features of the animated ragdolls in Grand Theft Auto 4, for example. Overall, this is very impressive stuff, and I imagine it would look great in marketing for the Sandbox game if you could pick up a player with the fizz gun and shake them to make their limbs flop around. After a recent large migration of users from Twitter to Bluesky, several notable Sandbox community members and Facepunch devs became more active on Bluesky. Jammy of Ape Tavern has taken it upon himself to create a Sandbox feed on Bluesky. A link to the Bluesky Sandbox feed is in the description of this video. I'm on Bluesky as well, of course. On Friday evening British time, Facepunch programmer Alex merged the highly anticipated Asset Browser 2 into the master branch of Sandbox. The Sandbox community immediately began to use it. Now, this new asset browser has some pretty cool features. For example, multiple asset browsers may now be opened simultaneously. Also, every file in your project, whether it's an asset, code, or something else entirely, now appears in the asset browser. However, while trying out the new asset browser myself, I ran into various problems. Some of these were issues already reported on the Sandbox Issues GitHub page. Others hadn't been reported, so I submitted a few new issues. The decision to release at the end of the week a massive overhaul to one of the most heavily used features of the Sandbox editor was criticized by some. In light of this rocky release, I asked out loud to no one in particular whether FacePunch would implement a QA process for Sandbox before it launches. FacePunch programmer Matt responded saying, "No, we will switch to more of a release cycle / staging branch thing though." So it seems that, at least in the future, the Sandbox editor will be more stable. Well, that's all for now, Sandbox enthusiasts. I'll try to keep up the weekly reviews and publish tutorials as well. If you'd like to see that, then subscribe.